Good morning. Can you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your nonprofit origin story?
Sure. So my name is Corrie Oberdin. I am based in Omaha, Nebraska, in the United States, which is like, I like to say, in the middle,
Nice.
if you think about it. My nonprofit origin story. So it goes back pretty far. My actual background, if you go back to the year 2000, if anybody can remember that far back,
Amazing. Love that.
I'm having my 25th anniversary in like literally employment and marketing this year. I got my start really early in digital. So my dad, bless his heart, got me on CompuServe in 1992. I was doing like message board moderation, and I was like a deeply nerdy internet kid before deeply nerdy internet kids existed. Graduated, moved to New York City. I'm originally from DC, so like one does, I moved to the biggest city I could think of. Moved to New York, got a job because I knew the internet. I had a friend who was working for a company that did digital marketing for music and entertainment. So I worked with some of your favorite bands from the 2000s doing online marketing stuff for them. And it was very early. We used like GeoCities pages and Yahoo groups and
Oh, I
things like
love this.
that.
I
I mean,
recognize
like,
these words. Yes.
yeah, like
Yeah.
back in the day, we would send instead of using a mail program, we would like email like hundreds of people from Microsoft Outlook because there wasn't an email program. I mean, it was that like cobbled together. And from that job, I got a job with a company called New Media Strategies based in Washington, DC. And I moved back to DC. And because it was DC, and DC has a lot of large nonprofits. We did some nonprofit work there. And I really liked it, but back then I kind of thought that my heart lay in what I like to call nerdery. So I was the Sci-Fi Channel brand manager. I worked with different video game companies and I was like, I am going to make a career of being a big old nerd. But then I moved to Omaha, Nebraska because I met someone. And he's from Omaha. And anybody who has ever been to Omaha knows we have a lot of different things, but one of them is a very robust nonprofit ecosystem. And when I started working for myself, I was in kind of the corporate ecosystem here. I hung out my own shingle in 2009 and was working for some larger companies, and a few nonprofits approached me asking me if I could help them get social media figured out. And I was like, of course, this sounds lovely. And as about 2 to 3 years passed, I realized that almost all my clients were nonprofits. And I realized I really loved nonprofit work. So I have kind of run the gamut of the type of nonprofit that I've worked for. There is everything from sort of like women's career support nonprofits to suicide and crisis hotlines to child welfare to library foundations. So it's literally the gamut of what types of nonprofits I've worked with, but I love them all kind of equally, not to quote Severance, but I love and appreciate all of them equally. Yeah, that's
That's
pretty much my
amazing.
origin story.
That's amazing. Well, and hilariously, right around the time I was starting the Nonprofit Hive, and I was my last job, I was like, I don't know if this is the right fit. And a marketing position came up at Dungeons and Dragons, like the Dungeons and Dragons. I was just
Oh my
like
god,
marketing, and it was like head of marketing, head of
yeah.
community growth, and I was
Oh,
going,
so cool.
"Ooh, do how do I choose the lane?" Because similarly, I am a huge nerd, and
Yes.
that's where sometimes the power of like digital and community, and I think
Mhm,
those of us who are very
mhm.
much embedded also in nerd culture know what
Yes.
community means because we needed it desperately.
100%. Yes.
Yeah, so it's great. I love
Yeah.
this crossover. This is so fun. And
Yeah.
in your time working with nonprofits, what's been your favorite part about being in the sector?
Oh, so I think my favorite part about being in the sector is the sense of possibility. There is so if you anyone who follows me on LinkedIn or listens to anything I've ever said knows I don't believe in a cookie cutter approach in general, but I think with nonprofits there are as many types of nonprofits as there is nonprofits that exist out there. So you can have two nonprofits who, on the surface, do the same thing, right? And yet they will have different services, different approaches, different personnel, different ways of connecting with the community, and essentially fill two completely different niches or niches, whichever one we want to say.
I think,
Uh,
yeah, both are
whichever
good.
one it is.
Yeah.
And they will also have completely different marketing needs because of what they do. I'm actually thinking right now, one of my clients, we are launching an internal newsletter for their team. And we were like, oh, it would be fun to let the team know that they're not alone in the work that they do. So let's highlight some other organizations around the country who do what they do. Well, we very quickly found out that, like, one, they're the only nonprofit in the United States doing the exact service line that they're doing.
Yeah.
And also there are hundreds of other nonprofits who are like doing similar things in the space but different. And it's so fascinating to see. So if someone's, oh, you've worked with this type of nonprofit, can you replicate something for ours? Because we do the same thing. And I'm like, let's scratch that surface and like really ask those questions and say, are you doing the exact same thing? Because I'm guessing that you're not. And your needs will be totally different.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would say marketing in the nonprofit world feels wildly misunderstood, the majority.
Yes.
Like, I that's been my experience in
Yeah.
supporting and what is marketing even doing? Is it kinda like some magic that you're doing? It is challenging, and I don't know if you ever read when Evan Wildstein and Michelle Thorsvin put out their social impact staff retention report, marketers were the ones most likely to leave out of any
Yes.
position.
Yes.
And like
Mhm.
the turnover was the highest there. People were
Yes.
looking. And I do think it's often an undervalued.
Exactly.
Interesting. And challenges, I know you kind of started to talk into some challenges, but challenges that you see for nonprofits, whether it be with marketing or brand awareness or
Sure.
just putting yourself out there. What do you see as the challenges?
So I think there's kind of a threefold challenge, really, if I was to be like broadly general and across the board. So I kind of see there's a threefold challenge. One, as you mentioned, I think marketing is really misunderstood. So, in general, I think that nonprofits, and I will also say, and their for profit counterparts who
Yeah.
often volunteer on nonprofit boards, do nonprofits a disservice by thinking what works in for profit business should be easily replicatable in nonprofit business. So, nonprofit marketing is almost seen as if you just do what the for profits are doing, everything will be fine. And that's, we don't have the budgets, we don't have the team members, we don't have the time, and we also don't have the time budget, I like to say.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that I think, like, kind of the misunderstanding of what works for column A won't always work for column B. So that's kind of number one. And just the general misunderstanding of what marketing is. And then number two is I guess I'm trying to say this without being making anyone sad.
Yes.
But a lot of times with nonprofit marketing, the biggest challenge I see is not seeing the forest for the trees or not seeing the trees for the forest. So a
Mhm.
lot of times I'll go into a nonprofit and they will really talk up one program that they're doing, that when we spend time talking about how are we going to communicate everything they do, and they focus like over here, and then someone will say something and I'll be like, "Oh, excuse me? Wait, what is tell me more about this thing." And it turns out there's a whole suite of services that they do either within the community or within other organizations or partnerships that they have that, like, they just don't it's like they don't even talk about or think about. So I'm
Yeah.
like, there's like the one thing, and I think it goes to the business hook of you got to hook people with one thing. Sometimes the depth and the breadth of what nonprofits do in the community, it can present its own communication challenge in a way that, but they don't have individual silos. So if you think about a bank, right? A bank may have commercial lending and consumer lending and real estate and all of these commercial products, but they have marketers for each one of those silos. And
Yeah.
then you get to a nonprofit and they have just as many service spreads, but they've got one person treading water, wearing one hat, but then switching. And a lot of times it's, oh, we're just going to go with this one main thing. So I think communicating the depth of what different nonprofits do. And then also the cross pollination of nonprofits working with each other. A lot of times in the for-profit space, you don't often see other for-profits like being like, we work with so and so. There's not a lot of partnership discussion. And in the
Yeah.
nonprofit space, like partnership makes us thrive. But how do you get everybody on board to talk about that stuff? And in the same way, or how do you feel okay talking about this person does this and this group does that? I think it can be really challenging. And I don't know if you can tell by my face,
Yeah.
but that's when I get really excited.
Yes. No, it's a great thing to get excited about. And I think the nonprofit cheerleading approach for cheerleading other nonprofits, it's a
Yes.
real thing, and
It's so
it
beautiful.
it's so beautiful. It can, I think, in many ways, it actually showcases trust within the nonprofit world
Yes.
to showcase each other. And what does that mean in terms of like how nonprofit markets itself to the world?
Yes.
By
Yes.
showing that level of like cooperative behavior.
Yes. Yeah.
It's beautiful. Like, I think
It's
actually it would
really,
increase like that feeling in the general public to go, look at these two
yeah.
groups working together to solve this
This
challenge, this
problem,
problem.
yeah, or help each other in the little
Yeah.
ways that we can. I love that, and actually some of my favorite projects to work on are when someone says, "Hey, we're doing this thing with someone else. We wanna showcase that." That's, like, my favorite thing, so,
Yeah, that's yeah,
yeah,
I love that. I love that.
um
So, I always like to ask, you've been in this work for quite a long time now. What does peer support look like for you as a consultant, as a marketer, as someone in this sector?
Yeah. So peer support, I think, can be, first of all, it's super, super important. And there is, I also think it can be challenging. So when you are, particularly when you're looking at like regional nonprofits, everybody knows each other. So that can be great when you're cheerleading other people or maybe need career advice or where to go next and kind of
Mhm.
stewardship. But it can be really challenging when there is a problem and you maybe want a different kind of support, like a troubleshooting type of support. Because when everybody knows everybody else, or
Yeah,
you're in a very small regional community, I was actually talking to someone in one of the nonprofit chats, and they were also in a small regional community where everybody knew everybody. And it was a very similar thing. You don't want to turn to someone at another organization and go, I'm having this problem with our executive team or with our relationship to city state whatever. So I would love advice on this. It can be harder when it's a little hotbed of everybody knows everybody.
yeah,
So one of the reasons I actually love the Nonprofit Hive and I try to get my friends and clients involved is because I'm like, you can talk to people and they're never going to know what your problem is because they don't know that person.
it's true.
So that's kind of number one. So it can be both very, there's a lot of, I think peer support is really helpful, but it can also feel really isolating if you have a problem. I know during the pandemic, and this is something I didn't start sharing about till later, but I was almost wholly running, like doing social media management. And
Yeah,
from a mental health standpoint, that really took a toll. But I didn't really think I could tell anybody. Not only did I think I couldn't tell anybody in like my local organization, surprise
yeah,
everybody, in my local organization or in my local kind of field, but I also didn't necessarily feel like I could admit that challenge to other people in the social media world because for the most part, people didn't, if you're running for-profit stuff, it's kind of hard to understand. So talking to other people in nonprofits from elsewhere, even other nonprofit consultants, was extremely helpful. I met one gal over Twitter and we would routinely like talk to each other about the different things that were happening just to be like, wait, is this do it? I feel this way about this. And she'd be like, no, I do too. And it was extremely helpful. So
love that.
self-seeking people can be helpful, but also I think joining different communities where there are either people doing what you do or people who understand the frameworks can be really important.
I think you've highlighted something so important. And I do think there's different, do we all need community in whatever levels of work we
Right.
do? Absolutely. But I do think social media, people who engage with social media, like
Mhm.
it's an interesting field and it's like
Yeah.
it has its own
It's
level of exhaustion. It has
yes.
its own challenges that when you talk to somebody else who does that kind of work, they know exactly what you're talking about because
Yes.
you can love it and also
Mhm.
be exhausted by it in the same
Yes.
measure. But that
Yes.
I find that there's oftentimes instead people are like, when I talk about my job, they're like, "Oh, I never do that. Never." Like they're almost disgusted by my interest in this topic. And so it's lovely to talk to people who get
Yeah.
that you can love something and also be exhausted by it, that you want to
Yes.
engage with it, but you also want to run away. Like,
Yes. Yeah.
and is that
Uh,
not nonprofit work in
yeah,
almost a nutshell for many, right? Like,
100%.
I love it. I love it. Oh my goodness. I
I'm
want
so
to run
sorry.
away so bad.
I think that's one of the reasons. Have you ever seen the woman who does the, like, nonprofit boss stuff on Instagram and TikTok?
Nonprofit boss. I think I know
I
who
am
you're talking about.
I love her, and, there's a couple other people who do like, nonprofit memes on
Yeah.
Twitter, also now on Blue Sky. I think there's a reason those things resonate so much,
Yeah.
because a lot of times when you love something, you can also see, like, the good and the bad, and the ridiculous and the good, and I think that's why I enjoy that stuff so much, but also it's fun to send it to my friends and I'd be like, "Look, it's you look,
Yeah. Oh, for
it's a joke about a strategic plan, the 3rd strategic plan in 5 years." And they'll go, "Ha, ha, ha." So it's yeah.
sure. Those of
You
us
can
who are
love it
moms,
and laugh at it at the same time.
absolutely. I think those of
Yeah.
us who are moms, this is where mom
Yeah.
memes come in, right? Because you're like,
Yes.
"Oh, wow, you hit the nail on the head in that one," right? Like, it's totally true, and we
Oh
like to
goodness,
be
I
able to
think I
see
just
ourselves.
yeah,
And yeah, it
yeah.
creates connection. It's
Yes.
great.
Yes.
So last question that I usually like to follow up with people is, what have you gotten out of being a Nonprofit Hive member? And I'm gonna highlight,
Yes.
you were one of the early people who even knew this was a thing and were very early on supportive and being, I think when I was still just waitlisting,
Yeah.
you were talking about it and sharing it and
Yeah.
stuff to the newsletter. So I deeply appreciate that.
Yay.
Yeah.
But I remember thinking, "Oh, this would be great for my clients," right? Because I have a lot of clients who, for a variety of reasons, like, I wanna see them connect with the broader ecosystem, but I also just thought it would be great for them because, like, at the time, I felt like none of them were doing a lot of networking because they were all so busy, plus pandemic stuff was still kinda in the air, right?
Yeah.
So but what I love about it is I have yet to have a Hive chat that, like, felt you do some networking stuff and you're like, "Oh, I hope I
Yeah.
never have to see that guy again." That I've never had that. Everyone seems so genuine, like, it's the best part of their week. You know what I mean? It's we might be busy, we might be overworked, we might be in the middle of a stressful situation, but you come to the Hive chats and it's not like, "Ugh, okay, I got another meeting at 12:30. Let's do this." It's very much, "What do you do? What can we talk about? Where do we" and for some people, we don't even start with what we do. Like, I just did one the other day, and someone had all this delightful art on their walls, and I was just like, "Oh, that's kids' art. Like, I wanna do that." We didn't even it was like 10 minutes in, and we're like, "We should probably talk about what we do." And maybe that means I'm the worst networker, I don't know, but
No.
it's so delightful, and the other thing that I love is that I have also yet to meet someone who is doing the same thing.
Mm.
So, even, like, the same sort, because, like I said, there's a million different nonprofits out there. We all do different things, either as consultants or as nonprofits. But I have yet to be like, oh, like you are exactly the same as the person I talked to 3 weeks ago. You guys do like
Yeah.
I've never, there's no topical crossover, there's no like position crossover, and yet there are so many commonalities between us. And I just love that so much. And also, no matter where anyone is in the world, I think that's another key piece where it's, oh, no matter where you are, and every nonprofit I've talked to, it does not matter where they are. The end consultant, there are questions like, oh, how should, in this day and age, do we market or do we talk about what we do?
Yeah.
Nobody is not asking that question. Nobody is not saying like, how does the greater world impact what we're doing? I mean, it's honestly made me feel a lot less alone than I think we probably could feel at the as I speak at this particular moment in time as well.
Yeah. It building the bridges internal to nonprofit.
Yes.
I know we serve externally so
Yes.
much in this
Yeah.
sector, right? So much
Mhm.
goes in service to the mission, but we I think it's okay to care for the carers, to care for the helpers, give
Yes.
that moment back to ourselves, and 30 minutes is a pretty small investment in a big week.
It
Thanks.
really is. And something else that comes to mind, a lot of times, like I've gone to networking events, I've gone to conferences, and you do networking events, and a lot of them, whether nonprofit or for profit, like freelance focused or consulting focused, feel very career oriented, right? This is a way that I will in somehow make my career better. And it feels with the chats that I've done and the events that I've gone to through y'all and the stuff you write about, it's more of the human side of things and the soft side of things. In addition to, here's how to do, like in the Hive partner meeting where we did the LinkedIn thing that was amazing. But
Yeah.
there's some businessy stuff, but it also feels very the soft side of things. And I think it can be so easy to forget about the human side of things and the caring for the carers. And I just love that. So,
No, that's been hey, it's been yeah, the support I've found in this group has
yes.
been just
Yeah.
amazing. And like you said, I've been meeting people from all over the world. I think I've had conversations with people from 30 countries since we
That's
started, which is wild.
amazing.
So
Yeah.
crazy. But I don't know, the heart of the people in this industry is the same somehow, regardless of where they're coming from.
Everywhere.
And isn't
Yeah.
that just great to immerse yourself in, right? Like
Yes.
I feel so blessed by it. I always like to finish these up, Corey, with please tell us about how people can get in touch with you,
Oh,
a little bit about your services. I always love to
sure.
finish up that way.
Sure. Okay. So you can find me. It's really easy. My business name is Oberdin Consulting, which is a mouthful. So if you want to find me on the internet, I'm actually at www.corrieo.net. It's
Corey.
simple, it's easy. You don't have to look hard for me. But what I do is I work with what I call small teams, small marketing teams of one or teams of none. So, and I especially kind of specialize in the teams of one or teams of not teams of I
Start
especially specialize in the teams of one or teams of none. And those are my friends who, whether in nonprofits or for profits, I do occasionally work with for profits who do good for other people. It's the organizations that either have a marketing person who is in charge of all the things. Their title might be marketing manager, their title might be vice president of marketing, but they're the vice president of themselves, right? And
yes.
so I come in and help them do things that they maybe otherwise would not be able to do. For my friends who are teams of none, and every time I say the teams of none and I give the explanation, and people are like, yeah, oh, that's me. It's the executive director who is also in charge of marketing because you're a developing or growing org. It is the director of development who somehow got and communications tacked on to their title, or it could even be another position that has end communications or end marketing tacked
Yeah.
onto it. Those are my teams of none because, quite frankly, you're not a team of anything if you're one person handling like five things.
Yeah.
So I come in and I act as a fractional marketing consultant. So I can do as much or as little as you need. I do specialize in digital, so social, email, like web content. But what I have found with nonprofits, and one of the things that brings me so much joy is that a lot of times, particularly from a nonprofit standpoint, I work with a lot of regional nonprofits. So think city, state, county, subsect, maybe two
Yeah,
states together that meet and align, not national. The line between on and offline is very blurred, right? So you might have an event and you're doing all your digital stuff, but also you have to think about what happens at the event so that you can maybe get more people on your mailing list or something like that. So
nice.
the lines blur for me as well. Even though I say digital, a lot of times I will touch offline stuff too. I also run a newsletter called Sustainable Social that encourages people with small teams or people in the position of being a team of none to be very mindful of the things that they take on. So, how to handle social media when it seems like you have to live on it 24/7 and live and breathe it and do all that stuff, but also do all your other work. So, I talk about being really mindful about what you choose and selecting things. I also talk about other marketing topics as well, using a lens of sustainability, which is not the traditional green side of things, but thinking about what can you do with who you have right now and the resources you have right now. And every quarter I do a free webinar for people on my newsletter. So
That's awesome.
I love doing it. I love teaching. So that's something that I kind of have as part of my mission as well. So that's it.
Oh, that's
That's me.
amazing. I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. Thank you so much for doing this with me, Corey, and,
No,
thank you for, being a supporter and believer in what we're building here. It's
I
amazing.
love what you're building. It's great.
Perfect.